Assalamu alaikum. You are listening to the Professional Muslim Women podcast, a place for working Muslim women to share their stories, struggles, triumphs, and lessons learned along the way in pursuit of their careers. Being a Muslim woman who wants to advance her career without compromising her faith or values can be challenging. We know these systems were never designed for us, but that doesn't mean we can't be strategic in thriving in them as we advance our careers. In this season of the podcast, we'll continue to bring you inspirational, trailblazing, successful, and fulfilled professional Muslim women to you. We'll be introducing a mentoring segment where we answer your burning career and life goals questions. We'll also be featuring the Taking Up Space course, the foundational career strategy course of our sponsor, the Defiance Academy. Tune in to the Professional Muslim Women podcast with me, your host, Dr. Wiley Hussein, trauma surgeon, wife, mom of 6, CEO, and keynote speaker for deep dives on all things career and life goals. Keep an ear out for the occasional surprise visits from our sister and friend of the show, Dr. Hani Ahmed, hospitalist, mom, and physician leader. On this podcast, we keep it brutally honest and tackle the taboo so you can be better prepared. Get ready to be inspired and learn how you can be strategic in forging your own path as well. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Professional Muslim Women podcast. This is Kayali. Today, we have Dr. Emma Wiley. Dr. Wiley is a microbiology consultant. She's in the UK. Here in America, we call that an attending physician, meaning she has graduated and finished her training, and she has been a consultant for almost a year now. She sits on the board of the British Medical Association's Equality Advisory Group. She is a member of the Muslim Women of Merton, which is a community outreach group that advocates on behalf of Muslim women in the community. She is also a mom of a 6-year-old boy. She is very busy. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Wiley.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
We are happy to have you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So let's get started with your journey to medicine and finding your way to being a microbiology consultant.
Yeah, so I applied for medicine fairly early on. I always had an interest in the sciences and decided to kind of take that further with an application to medical school. I was successful in my application to Cambridge University, and I started back in, a long time ago, 2001. You know, it was a hard path, lots to do, lots of studying, etc. And, I was there kind of with quite a lot of academic high flyers, but it was a really valuable sort of clinical training pathway. When I started as a junior doctor, I sort of started to think about the sorts of things I enjoyed doing the most. And I realized that I enjoyed the academic side of medicine, discussing cases with other physicians. And I was drawn back to laboratory medicine because we did quite a bit of that undergraduate. And that's why I decided to apply for a career in microbiology.
Did you always know that you wanted to go into medicine and study this? Let's go back before you were in medicine. Where are you from? How did you find your path here before medical school?
I'm not one of those people who always knew from a young age, but I think that as I got older, I took more of an interest in the sciences. I think that actually quite a common theme I'm hearing from some of your other podcasts is the influence of parents in making that decision. And I think that was true for me as well. I was certainly encouraged to think about medicine as a career path. And that's definitely a big part of the reason I think I moved in that direction.
Okay. All right. So were there any difficulties in finding your way into medicine, or it just came naturally to you?
I think the main difficulty is just the hard work that's required.
Yeah.
I think growing up, I wasn't naturally that academic, but I realized quite quickly that I needed to apply myself to it. And I think probably one of the things that I've learned in life is the importance of persistence. Because even if you're not naturally gifted at something, I think that if you are persistent and you work hard at it and you have focus, that it can pay off. So, yeah, I'm very much part of the growth mindset rather than the fixed mindset team.
Yes, that's one of my favorite things to talk about is the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. I think we've talked about it on the podcast before, but for those of our listeners who are not familiar with the difference between the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. Could you explain for them a little bit?
Yeah, so some people believe that you're either born with a skill, like it's just innate to you.
Mm-hmm.
Other people believe that you can work on it. So the fixed mindset is the first and the growth mindset is the second. And I believe that with anything, you can grow a skill. I think there will be some people who are more naturally gifted,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that you can get better at things. And that's pretty much what I did with academia,
Mm-hmm.
is that growing up, I would deconstruct what it was that was required to be academically successful. And I was able to get myself to essentially an elite university by virtue of that persistence and by kind of breaking it down into its parts.
Okay.
Alhamdulillah.
Did you grow up in the UK?
I did, yeah. Born in the UK and bred, yeah.
Okay. So as far as the growth mindset is concerned, I completely agree. I think that's one of the things that's important to keep in mind when looking at failures, right? With a fixed mindset, when you fail, it's, oh, I'm not good at this. I'm never going to get good at this. But with the growth mindset, the way we look at failure is completely different. It's, okay, what can I learn from this? How can I improve my skills or my effort from this failure?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a very much more of an optimistic mindset as well.
Right.
I think it's about taking the best that you can out of every situation. And so I completely agree with that. Yeah.
So talk to us about how you kind of, as a young person, not doing well academically, how were you able to deconstruct and find your way into elite university?
So there was quite a lot going on, first of all, in my teenage years. Our family was going through a really unstable patch, and I wasn't sure whether or not our household income would be assured. And so I had a real focus. Like, I knew that I needed to study pretty hard, and I wanted to give myself the best opportunity to create a little bit of economic stability. So the first thing I think was focus. The second thing was actually looking at those who have done well. And I think this is a general principle for life, is to study those who are successful in whatever field. Look at what it is that they do well. So, for example, I wasn't actually naturally that good at English literature and language, but I borrowed an essay from a friend of mine, and I looked at where the teacher had basically put all the ticks. And then I sort of thought, right, what is it that my friend has done to get those kind of brownie points? And then I basically recreated it in my own essays. And I went from being fairly kind of average at the subject to getting an A. So I think whatever stage of study or career you are, it's worth finding people who are, the best and breaking it down.
I'm glad you brought up that point. Yes, that's a very important concept of bringing about any kind of change, right? When people focus on, okay, what are all the right, all the wrong things, trying to fix every single thing that's wrong, it's very difficult to make any moves. But if you look at who is it that's excelling in whatever situation you're talking about, who is it that's doing it better, and how are they doing it better? And you can learn so much from looking at the successes rather than focusing on all the things that are going wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. So basically what I'm hearing is that you used some sort of a hardship, a familial hardship, to kind of give you the motivation to basically step up and improve your work habits or your study habits.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I kind of basically tried to reframe the situation as an opportunity. And it was also born of necessity. And I think the third thing that needs to be mentioned is the role of spirituality in all this, because, we would have been making du'as throughout this whole period of time and, really trying to get ourselves out of the situation that we were in. So I think that combination of kind of faith and action is absolutely critical for success.
Oh, absolutely. I could not agree more. One of the things that I usually talk about is tawakkul. Like, there are people that take, on the one hand, they say, oh, everything is written. Allah has granted us everything. Everything is predetermined. I don't have to do anything. What will happen, right? But part of tawakkul is you do your part, right? You do your part and put in the effort, and, we'll still help and we'll still be there. But the effort part, I think a lot of people miss when it comes to spirituality, and the fact that, yes, things are predetermined, but you also have to put in a little bit of extra effort.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, and the other strand that I think has come through a lot of the work that we've been doing, so I'm particularly thinking about Muslim Women of Merton here, is the desire for excellence. because I think that growing up, quite a lot of the resources, the materials that were available to us were kind of just roughly put out there, but they weren't necessarily high quality materials. And I think increasingly this generation will be about, and I hope a lot of the work that we have done to date has been very high quality. That's certainly something that we were aiming to do, rather than just kind of putting things out for the sake of producing them.
Excellent segue. Can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you do with the Muslim Women of Merton?
Yeah, so this is one of my passion projects. So we're actually initially founded off the back of a circle, like a gathering. Basically, a group of us used to meet to learn about Quran, about Sirah. It was basically, a women's group. And for quite a while, we were talking about what things were like at the time of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we started to kind of map it forward into the modern age. And we thought, what would a kind of modern day prophetic community look like? And so we had these conversations for quite a few years. And eventually we decided that we would actually take some steps and do something about it and set up women's organization in our local region. So a group of 5 of us with different passions came together. We put together some terms of reference and we pulled ourselves into a group. And actually, one of the things that made us really successful was Islamophobia. So we wanted to put on an exhibition at the local library highlighting Islamophobia, and we booked everything. And then at the last minute, it was cancelled. And this was by the local council. We received a call basically saying that they don't support any political or religious events, yet they were already doing other things in similar spaces. Mm-hmm. And so we took our concerns to the local faith forum, that the council held a faith and belief forum, and raised it in front of the chief executive. And off the back of that really was the beginning of Muslim Women of Merton. And so this kind of one veto, this one no, led to a year of amazing activities, including educational events across libraries, an event in the main council chamber, and a really wonderful, warm and vibrant community sort of interfaith tea event.
MashaAllah, that sounds amazing. Yeah, I mean, another prime example of not taking no as a final answer.
Right. Yeah, I mean, no gets us excited now. We like no. It's a challenge for us.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So in addition to Islamophobia work, what other advocacy work do you do on behalf of Muslim women that you mentioned?
So, in addition to Islamophobia. So, I mean, I guess there's 3 sorts of things that we do. One is events for the Muslim community. So we've done everything from weight loss classes, self-defense classes, health promotion events with kind of live cooking demos. The second thing is advocacy. So we sit on the local council. And so anything that relates to the public sector, so whether it's kind of fostering and the lack of uptake, or whether it's kind of local events, we provide the kind of Muslim opinion on, and the Muslim female opinion. We also advocate in terms of the local police force and sort of health and wellbeing boards as well. And then the third thing is really voluntary work or kind of acts of charity. So quite a few of our members like to contribute to homelessness causes, food banks, stuff like that. We have supported some international campaigns as well.
MashaAllah. You guys are doing some amazing work, and I hope our listeners will too, that Allah bless you guys for all the work that you do for the community.
Ameen, Ajma'een, and thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about this in this podcast. I really hope that other people check out the examples, and, we'd love to see similar things popping up. So we have a website, Muslim Women of Merton, can be Googled, and you can see all of the different things that we're doing. And we're also on Twitter and Facebook. We'd just love for the things that we're doing to be amplified.
Yeah, I think that's one of the first places I ran into Muslim Women of Merton always was on Twitter. Yeah, excellent. So talk to me about the work that you do on the British Medical Association, the Equality Advisory Group.
Yeah, so I've been sitting on that group for a couple of years now. And the reason that it came about was because of the work that we've been doing on dress codes. So I'll talk a bit about that. So in 2015, a group of us sat down in the British Islamic Medical Association, which is a voluntary group for healthcare professionals from all backgrounds working in the UK. And we wanted to understand a bit more about the impact of dress codes, such as bare below the elbows policy and also hijab in theatres. So bare below the elbows policy is a national policy. I think it's only in selected countries, but since 2007 in the UK, all healthcare professionals have to expose their forearms. They have to roll up their sleeves because of infection control every time they enter a hospital ward. And so this has had a big impact on Muslim women, and we wanted to better understand this. And the work was actually triggered because I read a paper on bullying and undermining within the National Health Service. And what it found was that your likelihood of being bullied was much higher if you were female than if you were male, if you were from a Black or ethnic minority group, or if you were junior. And so I started to ask members of the British Islamic Medical Association, particularly the sisters, what their experiences had been. And dress codes came out as the kind of number one thing associated with bullying and undermining. And sisters were basically saying things like that they had moved away from the hospital because they were being harassed really over bare below the elbows and the fact that they didn't want to roll their sleeves up. They had taken off their hijab because they had had a lot of harassment around wearing hijab in theatres, and that they had moved away from hospital and surgical careers towards family medicine because of dress codes.
Yeah. So this is the same theme that we've seen here in the States, the harassment and the bullying, and the fact that it affects minorities a lot more than, disproportionately, is something that is consistent across the board, regardless of what country you're in. And so what have you guys been able to do about the dress code? What steps were you able to take?
Yeah, and just to say on that point, I actually think that what we need is an international women's movement. I'm seeing bits and bobs. I think there's a medical student group in America, but it would be really great if we could connect internationally and make this a bigger thing.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, I think there's a movement of hijab in the OR. I know you said hijab in the theater. I think you guys referred to the operating room as operating theater. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, that's our name.
So, yeah. There is a huge movement, and I think that's one of the things that I absolutely agree. It needs to be an international movement because the dress code issue comes up regardless of where you are. And I've seen the same thing. I've practiced in many states, and it's the same thing. Every hospital you go into, every state has their own policy, and there is no consistency, and there's no standardization. So we're working on addressing that here, but I completely agree, it's an international issue, and it affects Muslim women, with the exception of those, I believe, in Muslim majority countries. But in every other country where Muslim women are a minority, it's a constant issue that comes up.
I think that it should be a WHO issue. And that's the advice that I've already had, actually. So that's what I hope for the future. I'd be very happy to be contacted about that.
Yep.
So in terms of what we did, we started to hear these anecdotal reports, but we wanted to actually formalize this into a proper research study. So we teamed up with a couple of research people, a sociologist and pharmacist with expertise in qualitative research. And we published a paper in the British Medical Journal. It's open access, so anyone can read it. And it's called I Decided Not to Go into Surgery Because of Dress Codes. So you can Google our names. So we gave out a questionnaire to 84 participants at the BEMA Women's Conference. So this was really to ask them about their experiences of both bare below the elbows and hijab in theatres. And what we found is that half of the people we surveyed had had problems wearing a hijab in theatre. And when you broke this down, it was comments like feeling undermined, feeling guilty, feeling sinful, and so on. And actually, when you look at the evidence base, and so I advanced this as part of an infection control fellowship with the Healthcare Infection Society. So I was looking at the evidence base as well as the equality components. There is no evidence that what you wear on your head in surgical theatres increases surgical site infection rates. So this guilt and this sense of sin must be coming from somewhere, but it's certainly not from the evidence. We also found that 16.3%, I think, for hijabs and 14% for bare below the elbows of our participants reported a negative career impact because of dress codes. And we had a number of separate comments, I think it was 7 people each, saying, because of dress codes, I've moved into general practice, or obstetrics and gynecology was my dream. Some people don't make this easy, but because I'm being challenged over what I wear, I'm choosing to move into another career path.
And from my personal anecdotal experience, I 100% agree. Even if you are willing to put up with the abuse and the harassment, you are straight up told point blank, you should not be doing this. You should go to another field. This is not right for you. Right. So even if you have the gumption to tolerate all of it and just deal with it, it eventually comes down to you don't belong here. And I think that is the underlying problem. Based on my personal experience, I think the dress code is sometimes used as an excuse, but I think there's just blatant discrimination that is an underlying root cause of a lot of these behaviors.
Yes. And it's just awful as well. The Royal College of Surgeons here are trying to understand why women don't enter surgical careers. These factors need to be explored as part of that.
Right.
We're never going to kind of achieve equality if we don't embed practice and policy that creates a level playing field for people.
Right.
So that's sort of what we then decided to do. So when we saw these statistics, we thought this is awful. There are national organizations that need to know about this and take action. And so we went to the British Medical Association and presented this data. And they were great. And they really instantly understood this as an equality issue. They then introduced us to NHS employers. And off the back of that, we had a national roundtable, which invited about 20 stakeholder groups in the UK. So we had everyone from NHS England, NHS Improvement, the General Medical Council, and sort of faith representatives. And we also insisted that national infection control bodies such as the Infection Prevention Society were at the table as well, because we wanted to make sure that there wasn't this kind of trade-off between patient safety and religion. We wanted something that was both safe and evidence-based, but also inclusive. And off the back of that, eventually, and it took a long time, but eventually I'm pleased to report that we just had the first national dress code policy, which incorporates faith elements into it. It's a multi-faith policy produced by NHS England and NHS Improvement. And it now explicitly states that you can wear a hijab in surgical theatres in the OR and the conditions under which to do that. And it also makes clear what the different options or alternatives are to bare below the elbows policy for healthcare professionals of faith backgrounds.
Kudos to you. MashaAllah. That is just absolutely wonderful news.
Alhamdulillah.
The fact that you've had this much impact on a policy that everybody takes it as, there's a policy, that's it, there's nothing you can do about it. But one of the things that I always love discussing with, especially young people wanting to get into these very difficult fields or areas where they're being told, clearly you don't belong, systems can change, right? Systems can change, policies can change. All you have to do is speak up. And by speaking up and by recognizing that there is an issue, because when those policies are being made, is your voice being represented? There are a lot of minorities' voices that are not being represented in these circles where these decisions are being made. And so the fact that you were able to infiltrate the circle and say, nope, there are exceptions to these rules. And unless you have someone with a personal experience to speak up, to speak to that, nothing will happen. But we as individuals have the power to have that impact. And you're a clear example of that, mashallah.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. And again, I reiterate that point about the combination of faith and action, because every Friday for the past few years, that final hour before sundown, been making the dua to have success and for this to be really far-reaching and impactful. And none of this would have been possible without Allah's permission and facilitation. We're just really pawns in a much bigger game.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Wonderful.
And I want to make a wider point just to build on your point, which is, and this applies both to Muslim Women of Merton and dress codes. When we first set out, we thought that nobody would want to hear from Muslim women about issues like this. And certainly the way that I was raised was, do not talk about religion, do not talk about politics, keep your head down, focus on your career, all of this stuff. And what we've actually found is the opposite. And I think if you have that kind of intention, doors are opened in magical ways. And for instance, dress codes has led to a much wider conversation about religion within the NHS. Alhamdulillah, now we as an organization, BEMA, and also me as an individual, have become the go-to points for all sorts of other faith consultations. And the same is applied for Muslim Women of Merton, is that people come to us now and they are so grateful to have a point of contact for all of the boxes that they know they have to tick anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of the reasons why, when we were coming up with a name for our podcast, that it was important for us to put those words together, professional Muslim women, right? And to have a place for us to voice our concerns and our experiences and our triumphs and our failures, because most of us are raised to say, your voice shall not be heard, right?
Yes.
Keep your head down. But, we are an important part of society. And if laws are being made that are impacting us, or policies are being made that are impacting us directly, then why are we not expected to speak on that? So I'm really glad you brought that point up.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it is actually not only ideal, but it's also often a legal requirement to have full representation for policy making. When Bare Below the Elbows was first introduced, there wasn't any consultation actually with women. It wasn't even anticipated that it would have a negative impact. But these are requirements,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. So you're doing, amazing job from your career to outreach to having, national impact on equality. You also have a 6-year-old boy at home. You're a mother and a wife. Tell us how you do it all.
Yeah, well, I think I don't do it all for a start. I try and outsource as much of it as possible. So, yeah, I mean, I think the little things like having a cleaner and having help from family in terms of childcare is absolutely invaluable. It also helps, I think, that I work part-time, and I appreciate that not everybody can afford to do that financially, but it actually is really great for being able to progress projects because you actually have a little bit of the morning available to you when you've got a bit of energy. I think that medicine normally as a career drinks you up. And certainly if you do it full time, it's basically overtime. So being part-time really helps to push things forwards.
I'm glad you said that. Yes. I mean, that's one of the things that we try to emphasize on this podcast is, there's no doing it all, right? We're all humans. There's no superwoman. There's no, a superhuman among us. So outsourcing and delegating, that's like one of my favorite topics.
I'm sure it is, given your immense productivity.
Speaking of mornings, right now we're conducting this interview. It's morning. The whole entire family is asleep and I am recording in my dining room.
Wow.
So yes, I mean, if you really plan your time well, the sky is the limit on what you can accomplish.
Fantastic. I think that's the secret to tap into is getting up early and, getting going.
Yes, exactly. All right. I have a couple of questions for you. So one is, what would you tell your younger self? What advice would you give to your younger self?
Probably to give myself time. I think that particularly if you're a bit of a type A personality, you kind of want everything done yesterday and you expect a lot of yourself on day one. And that's certainly true in terms of starting as a consultant or attending, as you guys call it. I think that sometimes I have, and I think we tend to push ourselves too hard too soon. And actually things do take time and it's okay to do things a little bit at a time. That's fine. You'll get there eventually.
Good. And any last words of advice for our audience?
I think there's something about, in fact, there's two things. One is about taking up space. I'm really interested in this concept at the moment. So, for instance, people say that men take up the space in a way that women don't. They kind of sit open, legs akimbo, and they take their time. And I think that like body language is as much of that as anything else. Take your time, I think, if you're a Muslim woman. Allow yourself the space to get things across. Allow yourself time to get your point of view across. And I think there's a second point, which is around asking permission, which is something we do often as Muslim women, is that we feel that we need to situate our views within somebody else's. And actually, that's not something that men do as much. They tend to just come in and say what it is that they think needs to be said. And I think that we need to do that more often. and we don't need to ask for permission to be ourselves or express our views. We can just go out there and be and say what it is that we want to see in the world.
Could not agree with you more. Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and your wonderful words of advice with us today, Dr. Wiley. How can people get in touch with you, either to collaborate or get more words of advice? How do they reach out to you?
So I guess it depends on which project. If you're interested in dress codes, then the BEMA email address is info@britishema.org. So that's britishima.org. And we also have an info address for Muslim Women of Merton. So it's info@muslimwomenmerton.org. And we also have Twitter accounts as well. My personal Twitter handle is @EmmaWiley16. So I'm happy to be contacted that way.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story and your time with us today. We really appreciate it. And may Allah bless you for all that you do, especially during this wonderful time of Ramadan. Thank you so much.
Ameen ajma'een. Jazakillah khair.
Thank you for tuning in to the Professional Muslim Women Podcast, the place for Muslim women to inspire and be inspired. Please join us on our Facebook group, Professional Muslim Women Podcast, to continue the conversation and connect with Muslim women like you. Thank you to our sponsor, Defiance Academy, and the Taking Up Space course. Be sure to check out the course at the link below. If you have any burning career and life goals questions, or you'd like to suggest topics for us to cover, submit them to the Mentoring Moments segment at the link below. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and drop us a like and a review. We'd love to hear from you. As always, may Allah guide us all on this journey. Stay blessed. Wa alaikum salam.